What's going on, everyone? Dots here. Today I'm bringing you a guide on how to utilize both of your weapon bars in the Elder Scrolls Online. With new players flocking to the game, with Draymore quickly approaching, I have seen a huge rise in people not understanding how to utilize two weapon bars in ESO. I've seen a lot of people, struggling with the concept, struggling with the thought process on how to set up two bars, and then those people end up only, utilizing one bar because they go, I don't know how to use the second one, and then they pigeonhole themselves into just using one bar. And in my opinion, you're doing your gameplay as well as your learning process a huge disservice not trying to utilize both weapon bars. And it's one of those things that once you, really figure out as a new player to utilize both weapon bars, it's not something you'll ever consider not doing ever. Like, you'll never consider not doing it ever again. Like, it's a very good thing to learn. I remember when I was a new player too, it seemed a little challenging at first to try to put myself in that mindset of swapping weapons and understanding the benefits of it and how to set the bars up in a way that made sense to me. But that's my goal with today's guide, is showing you guys some different ways, some different ideas, and some different thought processes on how to set up your skill bars, not only just for weapon swapping, but just for setting up your skill bars in general. So this is going to be kind of more free form though, so hopefully you guys will pull some good tips from this. Now, the first thing I've got to recommend when setting up your bars is set them up in a way that makes sense. I've seen so many people, when they talk about, like, when they're looking at a build, they think that they need to assign the skills to the exact keys that, maybe I or someone else have them assigned to. And that's simply not true. If you want your stun to be on 1 and your spammable to be on 3, go ahead and do that. It doesn't matter which slots these skills are on, as long as they're on the same bar, assuming you're following a build guide. So I just wanted to make sure to kind of clear that up, because I was working with somebody recently who thought that they needed to put the skills in the same order that I had them, but that's not the case. The best thing to do is always set up the keybinds in a way that makes sense to you. And what I'd recommend doing is developing a system. So for me personally, I'll always put, let's say, like, my spammable attack on 1, my main crowd control ability, aka like a stun, on my 3 key. I'll usually put my armor buff for major resolve on my 4 key, my major heal on a 3 key. So just kind of develop your own personal systems and habits for how you kind of assign certain abilities to your skill bars. And I think it'll make the skill binding process a little bit more intuitive the longer you play and the more classes you do choose to dive into. Now, in terms of setting up your skill bar for, we'll start with PvP, since I have my PvP skill bar set up. What I kind of like to do is I like to do an offensive bar and a defensive bar. That is personally the way that I generally like to set up my classes. Obviously, there can be some exceptions where I have a mixture between the two, but in general, my front bar tends to be more offensive and my back bar tends to be more defensive, which I think as a new player is a really good delineation to have in your mind. So on my back bar, I'm on my Magic Dragon Knight. I have my armor buff. I have my big major heals, a skill that allows me to move around unimpeded, a defensive ultimate. And now I've been getting questions, well, you have this dot on your back bar. I thought your back bar was a defensive bar. So in my mind, a way that it made sense to me was if I'm playing, if I'm PvPing, I'm out here fighting an opponent, right? And I have my buffs up and I'm about to go into a fight with this guy. This skill, as you can see, gives me a buff that lasts for 24 seconds. So what I like to do is I'll start on this bar with my armor buff up to make sure I'm as tanky as possible. Apply my heal over time. Apply my major sorcery damage buff. Bam. Swap bars. Now I am fully buffed up and ready to fight on my front bar. So now I can start applying my dots, lashing my opponent, going into leap. And now let's say I start taking some damage or I need to reapply my buffs. I can simply swap to my back bar, reapply those same buffs, heal myself up if I need to, reapply my damage buff, and then swap back to the front bar. As you can see, having two weapons allows a flow of combat. And that's kind of what you want to think when you set up your skill bars. How am I going to best flow between my front and my back bar? Which purpose do I want each individual bar to serve? And then that might get you thinking, well, weapon choices. What should I do with weapons? And that's kind of up to you. And it depends on the kind of build that you want to play. And it depends on if you're PvPing or PvEing. But the general thought process when you're setting up multiple weapon bars is, what do you want to get out of each weapon bar, right? I want you to kind of think about that. What do I want out of this specific skill bar. So for me, on my Mag DK for PvP, I want my front bar to be, like I said earlier, offensive. I want to be dealing damage. So I have an Inferno Staff because I'm going to get the most amount of damage out of Inferno Staff. Plus there's a certain skill, Elemental Drain, I would like access to on this bar. So I have to use this in order to get that. And plus, like I explained in my build checklist video, passives, incredibly important. ESO fundamentally is a game of passives. So I want to make sure to be able to gain these passives on my front bar. And now my defensive bar, I'm not just using another Inferno Staff on my back bar. Inferno Staff is not good for defense. So I use a weapon that is going to be good for defense. One Hand and Shield. I gain all of these wonderful defensive passives. Reduces the cost of blocking. Increases the amount of damage you can block. Increases the amount of range damage you can block. So having a Sword and Shield allows me to get these wonderful defensive passives as well as block very reliably on my back bar while I cast these skills and, you know, keep myself alive. So that is, you know, kind of what you want to consider when you're making your weapon choices. From a PvE perspective, right? You might be thinking, okay, well, I want a, let's talk from a Magicka perspective, right? From my Magicka perspective here, I'll put on my my skill bars. Ignore it, you know, put the full build on just so people don't get confused. So I run 2 Inferno Staves when I play a Magicka DPS, and the reason is that for Magicka DPS, Inferno Staves, specifically for Mag DK as well, Inferno Staves are simply the best weapon. I don't have a need for a Restoration Staff, a one-handed shield, because I just want to deal damage when I'm in a group environment. So I run 2 Resto Staves, 2 Destro Staves, because I don't need passives from any other skill line. I don't need skills from any other skill line. I only need my class passives, or my class skills, some guild skills, and the Destro skills. And having these 2 weapons, kind of allows me to mix and match my skill bars. Now, moving into PvE and solo stuff, which I think a lot of the people here are probably here for. You want to place your dots when you're PvEing, right? Because I know you see all these dot rotations and they maybe seem so confusing and you don't know how people come up with it. You want to place your dots in an order on your, at least this is the way I do it. I place my dots on an order in my skill bar from highest duration to lowest duration so that I could very easily cycle through them. So as you can see, Eruption, 18 seconds. Scalding Rune, when it goes off, 14 seconds. Unstable Wall of Fire, 10 seconds. So what I'm able to do on my back bar is just go simply 1, 2, 3. Then I can swap to my front bar. And then I have 3 skills that are all 10 to 14 second dots. So I'll do the Burning Embers first, then Engulfing Flames, and then Flame Reach, and then go into my spammable. And then whenever these back bar dots need to be refreshed, I simply swap back 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. So as you can see, that's why you want to utilize 2 skill bars. You are able to get so many more skills kind of packed in. Like I'm able to apply 6 different dots to my opponent when I'm in a dungeon. If I was only using 1 skill bar, I'd only have 3, these 3. And even then I wouldn't have access to all these great skills on my back bar too, you know? So that is why you want like a way to kind of think when you're making a DPS build. You know, you want to kind of think about that. You want to place your skills in an order from highest duration to lowest duration and just simply cast them in that order. You know, it might be weird if you put, let's say I had Scalding Rune on 5 and Unstable Wall on 4 and go 1, 5, 4. Like that'd be weird. Like place them in an order that makes sense to you. So for me, that just is to go 1, 2, 3. So that's kind of what I try to do whenever I am DPSing. Now, a lot of people that I kind of see confused with this, generally, I think, tend to play more solo. So what I'm going to do right now on my screen is I'm actually going to pull up a couple examples of some solo builds I've made. One that I made for my website and one that I made for somebody on Patreon, which, by the way, if you guys ever want me to make you a custom build, you can simply sign up on Patreon, link in the description below, and I can help you make your own custom ESO build for whatever you're looking to do. So, this is a solo melee Magicka Nightblade build I made for one of my patrons. And I basically tried to make this in a way that would be as simple to use and user-friendly as possible. So I put everything in order, kind of like I said. So we have his front bar, right? We have Merciless Resolve and Siphoning Attack. So you don't really need to know what these do. Let's say you don't play a Magic and Nightblade, but these are just 2 buffs, okay? So he's going to apply these 2 buffs on him, these 2 long duration buffs first. Then he's going to go bar 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, swap to his front bar, and then just go into light attack concealed weapon spam until this skill procs, and then he fires this off. Whenever his dots in the back bar start to run out, he swaps back, 2, 3, 4, front bar, same thing, and then when his enemy is in execute range, he just simply uses Impale. Okay, but to set myself up defensively, because, you know, he was concerned about being caught on a certain bar and maybe not having defense, I put a defensive skill on each bar. This is something you can do too, and I do this a lot myself when I solo, is I always make sure to have a defensive skill on each individual bar, so that if I am on that bar and I want to defend myself, I don't get caught. Oh god, I have to bar swap, and if I, you might get, a little worried and nervous, and you might mess it up, and then you might die. But if you have a defensive skill on each bar, you don't have to worry, because no matter where you are at any given time, maybe however slow you're going through your rotation, you'll be able to defend yourself. So I have Harness Magica on his front bar, and then Dark Cloak on the back bar for the heal. Another example I have is my Rage Solo Stamsork build, which can be found on my website, dotsgaming.com. I have a ton of builds on here. I'm going to be outputting more solo builds as well. So what we can do with the Rage build is I have it kind of set up where the back bar is my buff bar and my front bar is my damage bar. Okay, kind of similar to how I have my PvP build set up. So I have Crit Surge, long buff, okay, as you can see, 33 seconds. Hurricane is a long-term armor buff. We also have Deadly Cloak, which is a 10-second buff. So it's basically just like buff, buff, buff. And then Caltrops will apply physical major fracture to my enemies. So this will basically reduce the amount of resistance that I have, allowing me to deal more damage. So basically on this Stamsork build, what you would do is you would do like Crit Surge, Hurricane, Deadly Cloak, apply your Caltrops, swap to your front bar, and then if you're only facing one enemy, use Wrecking Blow. If you're facing multiple enemies, use Brawler. And then whenever they get onto low HP, you just start spamming Reverse Slice. And again, I have a more healing, defensive skill on each bar. We have Resolving Vigor to heal ourselves on our front bar. We have Dark Deal to heal ourselves on our back bar. So I kind of tried to make sure that no matter which bar I'd be on, I'd have a defensive skill to heal myself with. So that's kind of the logic I tried to apply, guys, whenever I make my skill bars. Is you either can make your front bar like a damage bar and your back bar a buff bar, where with giving yourself a defensive skill on each bar to maybe help you keep yourself alive. From a PvE group perspective, you're going to want to basically kind of have each bar be your dots in descending duration order. So the longest duration skills would be casted first, with the shorter ones at the end. You just simply go through those in a basic order, fill with light attack spammable until you need to refresh. And then for PvP, like I said, it has to be in a way that makes sense to you. So for me, a way that makes sense to me is that my back bar tends to be a more defensive bar with, a long-term buff back there, so that I can then swap to my front bar and just simply go offensive. It's really customizable and up to you based off of how you personally want to set it up. But what my goal was today, with this guide though, was to kind of show you guys a bit of the thought process behind how I set my builds up. Even then, my friend's build that I made on Patreon, right? He wanted a melee Magic and Nightblade, so I did dual wield and I did an Inferno Staff. I did the Inferno Staff on the back bar for some key dots and debuffs that he would need, and the dual wield on the front bar because that's the aesthetic he wanted. When I made the Stamsork build, the Rage build, I wanted it to be themed behind a more Berserker theme. So I obviously didn't want it to use a bow because, Berserkers are big, melee warriors. So basically what I did was I went with 2H and dual wield and tried to utilize the different things that those two skill lines would bring. So that's kind of what you want to think about, is what do you want to gain from your weapons? What passives do you want? What skills do you want? And that's the beauty of having two weapons, is it gives you access to more stuff than if you were to just use one weapon and one set of passives. Like, obviously for Magicka, Destruction Staff is going to be primarily one to use because we don't really have any other good damage weapons. So Destruction Staffs are kind of what we're limited to. So for, like, let's say PvE DPS, that's why you generally see people do to Destruction Staffs, because there's not really no other better option. If you're soloing, you could potentially use a Resto Staff, or you could again go to Destruction Staffs and just use your class heals if you want to go that way. As you can see, it's so personal. There's so much freedom and flexibility. And it's one of the things I love about the Elder Scrolls Online. But what my goal was for this video was to not give you a concrete answer like, okay, if you're playing this class, run this. If you're playing this class, run that. If you're playing this class, run that. I wanted to just kind of show you guys the thought process behind what at least I think about when I set up my weapon bars, and kind of try to impart that onto you so that you can maybe apply that to your own gameplay. Now, if you're maybe a little bit confused, what I would do is watch this video back again, kind of try to really listen to what I'm saying, and then go to my website, thoughtsgaming.com, and look at some of my builds that I've written, and try to kind of, you know, using the knowledge you've gained with this video, look at the builds and think, okay, you know, why does he have these weapon bars? What's he trying to gain out of this? What's his rotation probably going to look like? And then I think if you kind of give yourself that little bit of time to look at it, it'll become more apparent to you what you should be doing. And if you combine the knowledge in this video with one of the videos I made last week, my builds checklist, I think you're going to be in a really, really good spot for knowing how and why people set up their builds in certain ways. So guys, I know this video was a little bit more freeform, a little bit kind of off the cuff, but it was kind of more of a thought process discussion and explaining why I do certain things and how I think. And hopefully you guys did learn something from it. So if you did, I would appreciate if you slapped a like on the video. If you have any questions about setting up your weapon bars or benefits of them, etc., please leave a comment below and I'll do my best to make sure to get to it. And if you guys want to see more great Elder Scrolls Online, Black Desert Online, and other gaming content here on the Dots Gaming YouTube channel, please hit that sub button as well as the bell to keep notifications on. Guys, do not forget, I also do have a second YouTube channel as well where I play through single player games and do Let's Plays. Right now, we are going through a Shadow of War Let's Play, so check out my YouTube channel, my YouTube channel's channel page, and you'll see on the sidebar that we do have the Dots Gaming Let's Play channel featured, so be sure to go there and sub as well. So thank you guys for stopping by today. Very much appreciate it. As always, I'm Dots Gaming, and I'll see y'all next time.